Welcome to another episode of Doing It Cheap. Before I forget it, I want to give a special shout out to Brian in Arizona. He's a new subscriber, and he sent my plans for the 36-cent TV antenna to a friend of his that lived out in the boonies. His friend said he got 4 channels until he built my version of the HD antenna. He now says he gets 58 channels of television off that antenna. So go back if you get a chance and check it out. It's pretty cool. So I'm real excited about that. I love to hear success stories. I know it works for me, and you know, people lots of times take stuff with a grain of salt, and maybe it works, maybe it don't, but I sure was glad to hear about someone that could benefit from something that I shared on YouTube. So Brian in Arizona, thank you very much for telling your buddy about that. I'd also like to say hi to Linda. She's out in Idaho, bless her heart. She said she heard my voice and it reminded her of home, and she asked me where I was from, and I told her Tennessee. And come to find out, she's originally from Tennessee, but she got transplanted into Idaho. Well, she ain't too far from old buddy, the Idaho hillbilly, and so that sure is some pretty country out there. I spent time there in the Air Force. So enough of my rambling. I just want to give a shout out to Brian and Linda. Thank you both for subscribing. And you too. You know, I'd appreciate if you'd subscribe and leave a comment on these videos. You know, it means a lot when someone can benefit from something I do on here. And I'm all the way up to $1.28 in YouTube revenue. Boy, do that 999 more times, I'd be a millionaire. Anyway, let's get right into this video. Today's video is what I did with some Harbor Freight tools to process kindling. Well, you know, I did a review on the Harbor Freight T-post puller, where I got all my fence posts pulled up around my dog pen. Well, I got all the wire out of the way and got in there with my chainsaw and cut down all the brush and the tree that was hanging over and all kinds of stuff. And if you watched my video on making my all-terrain workbench, you'll recall that my chain had jumped off my chainsaw, and I was just aggravated. Well, I figured if I wait a while and let these leaves die out a little bit on these limbs, maybe it'd be a little easier to cut. And then I started looking at that big old pile of brush. See, I'm in the middle of the city right here. I ain't at my farm. And I can't just have me a great big old brush pile. They sort of frown on that. So I have to cut it up best I can, that, or I've got to pile it up by the street, and it sits there for a month before the city picks it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to cut the bigger pieces up for a friend of mine that has a little fire pit in his backyard. And he's got the sweetest little girls, and they like to sit around and have a little campfire in the backyard. So I'm going to save all the stuff that's big enough for them to fool with, and then the smaller stuff I'll just burn in a little burn barrel I got over here. So I started studying on this, and I said, man, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of bending over. And using a chainsaw with one hand ain't exactly the safest thing in the world to do. I mean, you know, you got this brush, and you're trying to cut it, and next thing you know, you might have a leg and a half, or a foot and a half. I wouldn't mind having a foot and a half. Well, I digress. Anyway, so what I'm going to show you is a crazy invention I come up with. Since my youngest son and my oldest son, well, since all the kids are gone, and I don't have any help, I had to build a helper. So stay tuned and see what the heck I come up with this time. We'll have a real quick 25-second commercial from my sponsor, and then you'll see this thing in action. Hi folks, I hope you're enjoying today's episode. One of the things I do here at Doing It Cheap is I imprint t-shirts. And if you'd like to have your very own I Like Doing It Cheap t-shirt, drop me an email to callbobforsigns@yahoo.com, and I'll give you all the details on how you get your very own. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to our program. How you like it? They're pretty slick. What I cut off falls in the trailer. I ain't got to bend over and pick that up. All I got to do is grab the brush, cut it, it's loaded in the trailer, take it where I want it. Easy peasy. And my fat ass ain't got to bend over near as much. I'll check back a little bit when I've made a little bit more progress. Whew. Well, I've done this whole pile of wood here. That chain ain't loosened up. Got plenty of oil in it. Chain ain't jumped the bar. I'm tickled to death right now. Whew. I'm sweating again. Well, this is how an old redneck processes kindling. What do you think about that? Chain ain't loosened up, still third full of oil. I've done this near this whole trailer full, and I'm happy with the way this is working, and I ain't got to pay a helper. I got a few more limbs left. I think I can get them all on here. But I hope you like what I showed you there. Man, it works great. And I'm going to go into detail here in just a few minutes of how I actually made this. And I hope you'll stick around. We're going to take a 25-second break for a word from my sponsor. And then we're going to get right into how I made this thing. Hey folks, if you're enjoying the videos and like to show your support, it would sure be appreciated. And if any of you can help me out, I'll send you one of these decals right here that I make myself. And you can let people know you like doing it cheap. Man, wasn't that a good looking devil on that commercial? Boy, howdy, I tell you. Anyway, I got it all done. I don't know if you can tell the difference back yonder or not in the camera. I can sure tell it just standing here looking. All I got left is a little pile of leafy brush here, the little twigs and stuff. And I'll let that dry out real good. Then I'll either burn it or just crush it up, run it through a mulcher or something. But the little electric chainsaw from Harbor Freight did a real good job, and I expected it to. It's got an Oregon bar on there, and I don't know if it's an Oregon chain or not, but I did sharpen that chain just before using it. As you can see, I filled this wagon plumb full, and now I'm going to tell you that is a lot of cutting right there, but it wasn't strenuous. So I just thought I'd share that with you. I'll be right back, and we're going to see all the different pieces and parts it took to make all this. Now y'all pardon me if I'm a little shaky because I just got through doing all this cutting. The first thing is, you see that red angle iron there. That actually came off my Harbor Freight sawmill crate. It was a bracket on the inside that held a saw head up so it wouldn't fall over. And I just grabbed a couple of pieces of that. In my case here, the upright is approximately 25 inches long, and this piece up here I believe is 5 1/4 inches long. And all I did is I welded this piece right on top of that one, welded it real good. I drilled holes in the bar of the chainsaw, 1/4 inch diameter, and use some 1/4 20 bolts. I put 3 washers on the outside here because the bolt itself had a shoulder on it, which is actually bigger than the threads, so I needed to space that off for a little bit. Also on the inside, can't see it very well, but on the inside here there are 3 washers, and the purpose for those was to hold this chain away from the metal. You know, if I bolt it right up, that chain would try to hit down there somewhere, so we didn't want that. Okay, so I got some angle iron, some bolts, nuts and washers, the Harbor Freight 14-inch electric chainsaw. This says it's a Chicago brand. I also have a 50-foot 12-gauge extension cord, and I cut that cord. I cut about 8 or 9 feet off of it, so that, and put a new plug on the end so that I could use their foot switch. This is the momentary on. There's one you step on it and it turns it on and it stays on till you turn it off. This one, for safety, I wanted my foot to have to be on it. I didn't want to be able to, you know, get myself caught up in that chainsaw and the thing just keep on running. So let me just step right here and show you. There. All it is to it. And then that plugged in to the other end of my 50-foot extension cord. Like I said, I cut about 8 or 9 feet off of it, and I bought those plugs at Harbor Freight as well. You know, one male, one female. And I figured, you know, most of the time you need a 40, or if you have a 50-foot cord, you don't always use exactly 50 feet. So, like, I'm going to miss a few feet off of it. And if I do, heck, I can plug it together and still have the 50 feet. That's all it is, folks. It's a 50-foot 12-gauge extension cord. Don't use anything smaller than 12 gauge if you can afford it. If you're using a 14 or a 16, try not to run more than light bulbs. So we got our cord, 2 plugs, a male and a female, and we've got the momentary on switch and a chainsaw. And I filled up the oil in this chainsaw when I first started, and it got down to about here a little while ago, and I filled it back up, and that's all that's used out of it. So it used basically one little tank of bar and chain oil to do all this cutting. Well, that is how an old, lazy, fat redneck processes kindling. I hope you like this video, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day and a better tomorrow. Bye.